Hey, it's Mazzy. Beatles, Beatles, Beatles. There's always room for another Beatle video of an announcement. This was announced this past week, actually, a solo Beatle. In fact, I should do like an ASMR. Let it roll. Let it roll. The Quiet Beatle. George Harrison. Let it roll. Let it roll on vinyl. You couldn't sit through 10 minutes of me whispering, could you? They've announced for the first time on vinyl, I believe it's a double album, and it is Let It Roll from BMG Records. This originally came out on compact disc in 2009, and up till where we are today, this is probably the best single overview, best of hits with a little few extra morsels for collectors. You know, that's the time when they stick a couple extra tracks here or things that you couldn't get elsewhere to buy these extra things. And of course, it works for not just the Beatle fans, for every band. They always do that kind of hits collection with one extra track or two extra tracks. Now, this was great because not only did it have hits of George Harrison's solo career, I want to go through some of the comps that have been put out over the years on behalf of the quiet one, Beatle George. This contained only his solo work and some work from soundtracks, basically songs that he gave away or licensed to movies like Cheer Down, wasn't it from Lethal Weapon, I think? That's on here. There's a live version of something on here. I believe that's probably from the Japan album. So you got Cheer Down, you got I Don't Want to Do It, Here Comes the Sun, Marwa Blues, of course, from the last album, Brainwash, but a live version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and of course the hits, I Got My Mind Set on You, that big hit he had just prior to the Traveling Wilburys. Now, no Traveling Wilburys on that. You know, I think they could have added a Traveling Wilburys song. I think that is fair, especially the first one, right? What's the first one? You know, the first one that really hooked it. That was going to be a B-side of a George Harrison song. I think that. In fact, let me just grab that while we're right here. We're right in the spot where the Wilburys records are. And of course, Handle with Care. It would be that from this album. Was it going to be a B-side? And was it Mo Austin and the Warner Brothers people said, wait a second, you got Bob Dylan and Roy Orbison and Tom Petty and thus become the Traveling Wilburys. But this is an excellent comp, and the CD package is beautifully designed, beautifully curated. You know, they did a great job on this, so I am thankful that they're putting this out on vinyl. I think it's a good time. Now, I've been sort of critical of all the estates, aside from Ringo's. Put Ringo aside for a second. I think the Harrison estate hasn't given the fans the outtakes and alternative stuff, and that's been few and far between. They've given us the massive sets, like the Uber box, which I have and I'm amused by, and they've given us product like Zoetrobes and special editions and single 12-inch singles and things, but they haven't really given us a lot of new stuff. They, as in Danny and Olivia, you know, but this is a welcome comp. I still think, you know, should they expand on it? Now, maybe this isn't the time to expand, but they need to. And I'm going to go over some of the releases I have. Now, one song that was greatly missed, I can't remember if it was right after this. No, of course it was before this, because this is 2009, long after George's passing. But Horse to Water, that song is like one of those orphan songs with Jools Holland Band that's on a Jools Holland comp. Now, I want to show this just because. Now, don't worry, this is just, I can't remember if this is an official bootleg, not that there's an official bootleg, but a bootleg that you could buy, or someone made this for me. It might have been a friend of mine, and I am forgetting. It's called George Harrison, A Horse to Water. Look at this. This is those Fat Boys CDs. And there's even a book in it. I think a friend of mine might have made this. Look at this. It's so interesting how sometimes the bootleggers or the fans, it's like fandom, creates things that are better. Maybe the cover could use improving. But look at that. 3 CDs packed with hits. Of course it has Horse to Water. In fact, it starts with that. Great, great song. Sam Brown sang that at a concert for George. One of the highlights. I was at the concert for George, and that was one of the highlights of that concert. What a great funky tune. And George's version is great. So that needs to be. They should have stuck this as a bonus track on here. I don't know how long this is on vinyl, if it'll fit. But I think that would have been a cool thing. But this is coming out, I think it's June or July. I don't have the exact dates, and I should have researched that. But I love the package design. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful design. But let's go through the history of some of the repackages and hits, greatest hits. The first one was the most embarrassing. This is 1975, 1976, I believe. And that's when all the Beatles were kind of in and out of Capitol Records and doing other things. And all the Beatles got a greatest hits, even Ringo, who had kind of the most top 10 hits, I think, at the time. Paul would, of course, with Band on the Run and Beyond. But look at this. What the fuck is this cover? How terrible. Phallic-y as well, George in Space, the spiritual, quiet Beatle. Capitol put this out, George, the best of George Harrison. Now, I think they copped out on this because half the music is Beatles songs. Now, of course, we love George's Beatles songs. Something, If I Needed Someone, Here Comes the Sun, Taxman, Think for Yourself, For You Blue, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. So the entire side are George Harrison Beatles. They could have put a lot of deep and good cuts to make it a best of his solo years. Like none of the other best ofs that Capitol put out at the time. Was this terrible Roy Kahara design too? Yeah, Roy Kahara was the art director. I'm sorry, Roy, wherever you are, but you did a lot. You did the rock and roll Coca-Cola stuff for the Beatles reissues and all that. Wasn't a big fan. Sorry, Roy. But this is terrible. But again, come on. You didn't even put Beatle Ringo songs on the Ringo or the McCartney. Of course, McCartney and John do have a deeper catalog, but George had, what, how many albums? 5 albums on Capitol by this time, give or take, and a double album? Whatever it is, 5 or 6. You know, that is a waste. And this is a terrible cover. On the plus side, slightly plus side, in the UK, this was the UK version of the cover. Much better. Imported from England, imported into the US, different cover. You had to get a different cover, same track listing. You know, this is somewhat better design. And of course, it shows George. It's not George in space here. George in space with a phallic deco monolith around him. What is that about? But this is a better cover. Then some years later, this came out. Now, this was at the end of the 70s, I believe. This is the best of the Dark Horse years, 1976 to 1989. Of course, 1989. Came out, but late 80s, around 1990. And this is actually a good record. You don't see this on vinyl much. It did come out on CD, obviously, but this is really during the CD era. So if you see this, grab it. I mean, it's kind of a nice comp. What's on here? I don't even forget what's on here. It's Dark Horse. Dark Horse was the label that he started originally. A&M distributed Dark Horse, but that was when all the other bands signed. And A&M signed this deal with George to put up his own custom label, Dark Horse, with the hopes, you know, of course we're going to get George eventually. Not that he's a massive seller, but he's a friggin' Beatle. And of course, once he decides to leave Capitol Record and do his own thing, he does 30 goes to Warner Brothers. So everything switches to Warner Brothers. But of course, one of the great custom labels of all time, that Dark Horse label. But on here, you have Poor Little Girl. That is a great track that I believe it is it on here? Because that was a rare song. It's not even on here. Poor Little Girl is a great song. That should be on here too, because that wasn't a normal album track either. But it opens up with that. What a great song. Blow Away, Cockamamie Blues, another kind of rarity at the time. So this is actually a good comp too. So that's the thing with a lot of artists, not just picking on George Harrison, that you have to get all these different things to make up what you want. You want to complete the story and complete the musical story. So, this is okay. The cover is okay, not great. That's kind of cool, actually. What do you think of this cover? I mean, it's, and this is a Canadian edition. I don't know if this ever came out. Anybody know? I haven't looked it up. Did this come out in America? This is Canadian. I picked it up when I moved to Seattle, so I never had this on vinyl. And I saw it in a store, a used copy in a store, manufactured by BMG Direct Marketing. I wonder if this was a record club thing or something. Don't even know. I should know that because I make YouTube videos. I should know this shit. Then, okay, let's cut to, was it 2012 in this? Now, George Harrison, Early Takes Volume 1, essentially sort of a rarities album. Worked with Olivia and during the Martin Scorsese documentary. I think that's one of the weakest documentaries they ever did from the Scorsese group. As much as I wanted to see a George Harrison, it really comes from a lot of the Beatles stuff, and it really didn't do a deep dive into his solo stuff. I was so disappointed. But what's bizarre about this, Early Takes Volume 1, it's one of those situations, there was no Volume 2 ever. And it's been, 13 years now, right? But this has demo versions of My Sweet Lord, Run of the Mill, I'd Have You Anytime, an Early Take, Mama, You've Been on My Mind, that great song. I mean, everyone from Dylan. What a great folk song. Let It Be Me demo. Dylan did that as well, right? That's the Elvis thing. Woman, Don't You Cry for Me, an Early Take, Wait in You All. So this is essentially a rarities record, but it's so minute, so minuscule. It's such a teaser. It should be Early Teases Volume 1 because you want more. This should have been an expanded outtake rarities thing, at least a double record of really cool stuff. But it just it gives you a taste, and it's kind of like getting the aperitif and the appetizer, and they won't feed you the meal, right? But it's a nice package. I love that George Harrison shot. Of course, they do a shot of him with the Beatles, and this is all solo stuff. Again, the making of Martin Scorsese, George Harrison, Living the Material World, about that documentary. I think it's a valiant try, a major disappointment and everything. It's great to have this stuff, I will say, but it kind of, as I said, whets the appetite, and the audience expects more from the estate and for something like that. Now, a couple other things just I want to throw out just to showcase, because more on YouTube you want to see things. I love that over the years, the estate, with help from the labels, finally all Harrison's stuff is in one place. For a while it was with Universal, now it's with BMG. So he can do whatever he wants, or they can do whatever they want, Danny and Olivia. And I think they're missing the mark. McCartney needs to finish the archive series. I think he does a pretty good job for the most part. Sean and those Lennon sets are friggin' amazing, with the all the explorations of the albums and the demos and the works in progress. And I just think those are a great template. I wish everyone would do it. But these sets were great. This is George Harrison, The Apple Years. This is a wonderful CD set, beautifully designed. Look at this. There's Escher when he was painting that. I love this. So The Apple Years, that's that great picture from the insert from Wonderwall Music. And of course, the opening and all those records, the catalog with a booklet here. Just a great set of just the basic catalog. As I recall, no extra tracks, no bonus stuff, but still a solid way to get the catalog. And then eventually they did the equivalent. And I can't believe they did two things that match. That's the problem I've had with, even with McCartney Archive. They don't all look the same. Harrison's all over the place. The Beatles, the remixes, all those box sets are all over the place form-wise. Shapes, higher, lower, smaller, square, rectangle. What a cocked up design vision. But again, I'm going to give kudos to Sean and company and Yoko and the Lennon estate. All those square box sets in the CD expanded boxes fit. And that's the Virgo in me, but come on. You can't tell me that even you messy people don't like that they all kind of line up, right? But this is the Dark Horse years. There's that great logo. I do admire that. I think these are beautiful. And again, if you're a compact disc person, you might want to check out these. Again, there's the book, and of course you have all the records, including Live in Japan. Cloud 9, the George Harrison self-titled, Somewhere in England Gone, Tropo, 33 1/3. It's Crackerbox Palace. But these two together, there's that old thing that record collectors like to say looks good on the shelf. It is about the music, but there's a physical side, a beauty of this. Look at this. This is gorgeous. Love this. So that's great. But again, Danny's the heavyweight. The Uber box is friggin' huge. Now, they did put out some, 8 years ago or so, the massive, all vinyl, George Harrison box. One of the heaviest boxes in my collection, next to the Grateful Dead's complete Lyceum shows. Ugh, look at this. I love the lenticular cover. Look at this. Do you see it? It's not working very well here, but you got the two different takes, old and young. I love that. These are actually pretty good. They're digital cuts. Again, I don't know why Danny can't go back to masters and do all analog. They've done it. For some reason, they just don't want to do that. And, the sound of the mixes and things, in terms of the Harrison releases, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't know what. I don't think the remixes work that well. All Things Must Pass, and because the original mix. I don't care what people say, and I'm maybe a naysayer. Oh, the Phil Spector was too bloated, and All Things Must Pass. There's too much this, too much that. But it works. And I have my original American copies, and they sound stunning, especially when it opened up Anytime at All, the very beginning into My Sweet Lord, track 2, I believe. It's just the acoustic guitars. Yes, there's some big things like a Waiting on You All, but that works for that song. It's a stunning record in the original mix that Phil Spector did with George Harrison between Friar Park and Abbey Road and wherever, I think is brilliant. And I'll just leave it at that. But I want to kind of give you guys a heads up. I haven't pre-ordered it yet, but I will pick it up. I might just wait and pick it up support my local brick and mortar record store coming out through BMG, George Harrison's Dark Horse. They've been doing some interesting things, and I think this on vinyl, I think this is welcome on vinyl. It's not cash grab. It's not something that people aren't asking for. Yes, we want more outtakes. We want more George Harrison things. There's a plethora of things in the can, what we know about, that we want. Now, I always hate to say we, because whenever I criticize people, you go on these forums about Grateful Dead or Bruce Springsteen or the Beatles, we've already heard that. Well, not everyone's heard it. You might have heard it, I might have heard it, and there's things that I haven't heard. So you want to get stuff for everyone, for new fans as well as old fans. And I think if you don't have a lot of George Harrison solo stuff and you want to taste, this is going to be a really cool introduction to George's solo years. I still wish Horse on the Water would have been a good coda to tack on this. Again, I don't know time-wise. Maybe I would have taken off Something Live, because since it's a Beatles song, do you need a live track? I would have put Horse to Water instead on this. But that's my only change on it. But thanks for watching. any chance I get to talk about the Beatles, I do. So thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you.